Jimbo Fisher is out at Texas A&M. Now who's going to replace him? Is it Elko, Lanning, Traylor? Bada bada bing bang. I don't know. I'm going to dive into that and more. Hey, I'm Brian. Welcome to Clemson Football Live. You're like, hold on, you're talking about A&M, and this is Clemson Football Live. I told you I talk about other college football teams here. We just love our Clemson Tigers. I talk about Clemson literally all the time. This has a really interesting little flair to it, considering Jimbo Fisher was at Florida State, Mike Elko is at Duke. We'll get into that and more. But welcome to the show. Welcome to the channel. I'm Brian, as I said earlier, and I hope you subscribe. It's free. It's a great way to support the channel. So let's dive right in. Jimbo Fisher had high expectations. I mean, he really did. There were so many expectations on the guy. He was supposed to come out and set the world on fire. A&M gave him a large contract out of Florida State. Remember, he was fighting with fans in the stands. He was upset. He was mad. They were mad at him. And Texas A&M, they come along and they scoop him up. They get him up out of that mess in Tallahassee. He's going to have every tool at his hand. Every request would be fulfilled, including a ton of money. But things wasn't really going that great. But if my memory serves me correct, the whole 2020 season and the craziness that was and still is 2020 saved him. I believe he went 9-1 in that 2020 season. And what did Texas A&M do? They came out there with a massive contract with a buyout of like a ton of money. Well, things didn't really turn out well. Even in my preseason preview, I said that I would be shocked if he was still the head coach of Texas A&M at the midseason point. Now, he did get beyond the midseason point. We only have about 3 weeks left in the regular season. So he did that. And it's kind of interesting that right after beating the brakes off of Mississippi State, the Texas A&M fired him. It's kind of odd. Anyway. They have to pay $76 million to Mr. Fisher. He even in losing, he won. So who's going to replace him? There's two names that is really circulating. Mike Elko from Duke, who has turned toilet water into wine in Durham. And in fact, this season would be much better had Riley Leonard not got hurt against Notre Dame. Had he stayed healthy, things would be, I believe, a lot different. Then, of course, Dan Lanning up at Oregon. Yeah, he's in Eugene. This is only a second season. They've only lost one game, and that was a walk-off field goal they missed the field goal. But they only lost by, 3 points to Washington? Both of these teams are in playoff contention. Dan Lanning has his experience at Georgia, and a few years ago when they won their first national championship since 1980, he was the defensive coordinator. He was a hot commodity. So Eugene, Oregon called up, scooped him up, brought him in, and he's done very well there. Now, there's other names that are floating around, like the guy, I think his name's Jeff Traylor out of UTSA, and he's done some really good things there. Of course, Lane Kiffin, his name's been brought up. But for me, the clear favorite in all of this is one particular gentleman. You do have to understand that Texas A&M has to buy out a contract of an existing coach. Now, most people were not crazy enough to give a buyout so massive like, I don't know, Texas A&M did to Jimbo Fisher. So it's easier to come along and buy out certain contracts because they're not astronomical. Dan Lanning's buyout is like, I don't know, $20 million. And then you got to consider assistant coaches and all, their buyouts and blah, 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 blah. This is a lot of money that A&M's having to shell out. And it's their fault. So they should. Hopefully, they and other schools will look at this scenario and ask themselves, why are we acting like idiots, throwing money around? This is ridiculous. We need to stop these massive buyouts. We need to give coaches the incentive to have to continue to win. Because if you give them a massive buyout, no matter what, guess what? There's no more incentive to win. You can just kick back and blame whatever for your reason of being unsuccessful. As to where if Jimbo's buyout was something like $15 million, he'd been gone a long time ago. And had they been smart enough to say, hey, great, he got a 9-1 season in a year where the world turned upside down, we might just want to pump our brakes on giving him a bigger contract in this massive buyout. I think a lot of schools, they're actually learning from that. I hope Clemson learns from that in the future. So who is this clear favorite? Well, I believe Mike Elko at Duke is the clear favorite, in my opinion. This guy, what he's done at Duke is unbelievable. Now, Dan Lanning is a very good football coach, and he has the SEC experience. I know he has the SEC experience with Georgia, just recent SEC national championship experience. And I know that Mike Elko has tons of experience everywhere and SEC experience. But I believe his dedication to coaching, his seniority, his ability to take a team that is underwhelming. Duke is an underwhelming job. You're not getting the best athletes. I'm not knocking those athletes up there. We saw what they did to Clemson, and they're great athletes, but that is a point there. He coached those guys up. He developed the players. He got the most out of them. He got Duke football. He got the scene around them to become excited. How did he do that? Now, let's look at Dan Lanning. I'm not going to take a shot at him. The guy's very talented. But Oregon has every resource in the world. I don't know if you've noticed or not, they have all that Nike money just flowing like a flooding river into the joint. They still can't win a national championship. Now, maybe they prove me wrong this year and they do it. But what I'm saying is I would much more land or side with the guy who went to Duke and last year went 9-4 and this year has done. I know that their record's not that great right now, but their starting quarterback got hurt. They almost beat North Carolina this past week, and he's done some great things there. I believe that's the guy who needs to take over a team and over a program that is distraught. They're upset. I mean, talent is not an issue at Texas A&M. So you need that guy to come in and get everyone on the same page. You need that guy to come in and look at players, whether they're 5-star players, which A&M has a lot of them, and a ton of 4-star, or maybe they're a 3-star player, a 2-star player. Look them in the eye and say, you actually have a say in how well you do. You actually have a say in how well your unit, whether you're offensive lineman, offensive lineman, or a wide receiver, or a member of the secondary, whatever, you have a lot of say of how well your unit does. You have a say, actually a big part in how well your side of the ball does with your defense, offense, or special teams. You need that guy running things. That's why I lean towards Mike Elko more than Dan Lanning. Again, Dan Lanning is a very talented coach. Mike Elko has proven himself with less talent. He's done a lot more with a lot less versus other teams. You could say, what about Traylor, UTSA? Sure, I get that. But right now, A&M, they need to make a move that makes sense. They need to make a move for someone who can actually come in, who has proven themselves at bigger jobs with maybe a little less talent, and they've went out and competed against the big boys and beat them. beating Clemson by 21 points in the beginning of this season, that is a major feather in the hat of Mike Elko. He was playing against a team who totally outmatched him at every level of play. I mean, for goodness sakes, Clemson had and still has one of the hottest hires in the offseason as their offensive coordinator. And Mike Elko's team beat them by 21 points. Well, we had 200 on the ground, 200 in the air, 21 points. We had 12 more first downs. You still lost by 21 points. We had the ball 11 minutes longer. You lost by 21 points. Well, there was the fumbles. Somebody had to create them. 21 points. If I were Texas A&M, I would sober up. I would look at what made us hire Jimbo Fisher, a guy who was arguing with his fans. Whenever a coach starts arguing with their fans, no matter who they are, it's never a good thing. What they need is stability, and they need someone who is a proven leader who can take over any situation, underwhelming situations, and pull it back together. Get the guys competing, winning games they're supposed to win, winning some of the games they don't supposed to win. And in the case of maybe a game they're supposed to get their head knocked off, they go in and maybe even win some of them or at least keep it close. If I am Texas A&M, I'm going after Mike Elko. I don't know what his buyout is. I looked up his buyout. I couldn't figure it out, couldn't find it. Now, I will tell you, he's already issued a statement that he and his family loves Duke. That's the right move to make. He's a professional. He knows what to do, and he might very well love Duke. He might love the Raleigh-Durham area. I've been there. It's a nice area. I've never been to College Station, but I will promise you this. He's had to have been contacted by now, right? And it's just a little over 24 hours since A&M fired Fisher. Who knows? They might have even unofficially contacted Mike Elko before this was ever done. I'm telling you, folks, if Texas A&M wants to do what they should do, they need to go after Mike Elko. Dan Lanning would not be a bad hire. That would be a good hire, folks. But I am just telling you, Mike Elko, to me, is the clear choice for Texas A&M. Folks, thank you so much for joining me. I am going to do a video right after this. I'm going to talk about the Clemson and North Carolina matchup. This is not my official prediction, but I do want to talk about North Carolina, who's out, who's playing. Right now, Clemson's a 6.5 point favorite. This game is in Death Valley, and I believe it's 3:30 on ESPN this coming Saturday. So, folks, I'll get to that in just a second. Hope you hit the subscribe button. Hope you turn on the notifications. It's free. Also, if you want to support the channel on a monthly basis, there's a join button right under the video. Now, if you're on an Apple product, you may not see it. It is so flipping cheap. In fact, I have some people in here right now who are members, Grafnard, Jimmy Brown, a bunch of people. So hopefully you will subscribe or you will join the Clemson Football Live just like they did and support the channel. Thank you so much. I'll catch you on the next videos. As always, go Tigers.